In 2026, the nation known as Canada may cease to exist as we know it. This isn't speculation. This isn't fear-mongering. This is the path we're already on. Alberta, Canada's energy powerhouse, is preparing something that could break the country in two. A referendum. A vote that might be the beginning of the end. But how did we get here? Why now? And who's pulling the strings behind the scenes? It started with whispers in the West. Then came the petitions, the rallies, the fiery speeches. Danielle Smith, Premier of Alberta, didn't just ride the wave, she helped create it. And now? She's vowed that if enough signatures are collected, a referendum on separation will be held in 2026. Supporters say it's not about hate, it's about survival. They claim Ottawa is bleeding Alberta dry, choking its economy and ignoring its voice. And they're not wrong, or at least not entirely. This isn't a fringe movement anymore. This is mainstream. And it's shaking the very foundation of Confederation. For decades, Alberta sent billions to Ottawa through equalization. In return, they got pipelines cancelled, carbon taxes imposed, and promises broken. And in 2025, it all exploded. Federal energy policies, endorsed by the new Liberal NDP coalition, pushed aggressive climate targets that crippled oil operations in the West. Meanwhile, Quebec got a pass, continuing to profit from hydroelectric exports. "We're not equal partners," Smith said in a January speech. "We're a colony." But here's what most Canadians don't realize. Alberta already passed legislation in 2023 giving its legislature the power to override federal law. It was dismissed at the time, called symbolic. But now, it's a legal blueprint for separation. And behind closed doors, sources say Alberta's Justice Ministry is quietly preparing a provincial sovereignty framework that would immediately come into effect if a majority votes yes. Is this the first domino? One of the most complex, emotional parts of this story is the role of Indigenous nations. Some treaty chiefs have already declared that Alberta has no right to secede without their consent. Others are exploring the possibility of remaining part of Canada, even if Alberta leaves. And one report obtained by this channel suggests a major Indigenous nation is in talks with Washington about cross-border economic ties, bypassing both Ottawa and Edmonton. If true, this would mark a historic shift in North American Indigenous sovereignty. So what happens if Alberta votes yes? Experts warn of instant market turmoil. The Canadian dollar could drop. Foreign investment would freeze. And federal pensions CPP, OAS might become inaccessible to Albertans overnight. Smith says Alberta would create its own pension plan. Critics call it a fantasy. But guess what? Quietly, Alberta already completed a feasibility study in late 2024. It's never been released publicly. Until now. While politicians argue publicly, something more powerful is happening behind the scenes. Several major oil firms have relocated their Canadian headquarters from Toronto and Montreal to Calgary. Some are even funding pro-separation campaigns, discreetly. We spoke with a whistleblower who claims a multinational energy company has already pledged legal resources and offshore banking support if Alberta exits. They see this as liberation, he told us. A chance to break free from Ottawa's grip once and for all. As the referendum draws closer, something strange is happening. National media outlets, CBC, CTV, Global, are covering less and less of Alberta's movement. Almost nothing on the front pages. No headlines. No primetime debates. Why? According to insiders at two major newsrooms, journalists have received internal memos instructing them to deprioritize coverage of Western separatist rhetoric unless authorized by senior editorial counsel. Some believe it's a coincidence. Others say it's something darker. A leak from a former communications staffer in Ottawa claims the federal government has invoked a little-known provision of the Emergencies Act, not to crack down on protests, but to control the flow of information. If true, that would mark one of the most extreme government interventions in free press since the October crisis. In a development that shocked both supporters and critics of Alberta's referendum, a leaked draft resolution from a federal think tank proposes something extreme: the construction of controlled checkpoints along the Alberta-Manitoba and Alberta-BC borders. Yes, a physical border. The stated reason? To prepare contingency logistics for the movement of military equipment, goods, and financial assets in the event Alberta exits Confederation. Carney's office denied the leak. But days later, contractors in Saskatchewan confirmed they'd been approached about fortified transport hubs outside Lloydminster. If this plan goes ahead, we may see something Canada has never known in its history: internal borders. And then, Quebec spoke. Just when Western eyes were fixed on Alberta, the Premier of Quebec held an emergency address. His message? If Alberta is allowed to vote on independence, then so are we. Within hours, the Bloc Québécois surged in the polls. Independence hashtags trended across Montreal. And former Premier Pauline Marois made a rare public statement, calling for a national summit of sovereign provinces. For decades, Quebec's independence movement had cooled. But Alberta's defiance reignited it, and now the flames are spreading. Could we see not just one province leave, but two? Quietly, the Canadian Armed Forces are preparing for multiple outcomes, including the unthinkable. Sources inside the Defense Department say internal strategy briefings have already modeled 3 scenarios. Alberta votes yes, but Ottawa refuses to recognize the result. Alberta votes yes, Ottawa refuses, and civil unrest erupts. In each case, the military is expected to remain neutral, on paper. But what happens to Alberta-based units? Do they remain loyal to Ottawa? Or side with their province? Retired generals have already warned that certain regiments may face loyalty fractures, especially if their own families are caught in the middle. No one wants it. But military division is no longer a fantasy. It's a possibility. Alberta's drama isn't just national anymore, it's international. Foreign diplomats have been spotted meeting with provincial officials. China has increased investments in Alberta's lithium sector. And U.S. state governors, especially from Texas, Montana, and North Dakota, are publicly praising Alberta's independent spirit. One U.S. senator even joked, "If Alberta ever wants to join the Union, we'd welcome them." But here's the bombshell. A document shared online claims that a NATO task force has flagged Western Canada's instability as a top-tier geopolitical concern. Because if Alberta breaks away, the ripple effects could stretch far beyond North America. This isn't a warning anymore. It's a countdown. Every day, the pressure builds. Every day, more people ask, what happens if Alberta votes yes? Can Ottawa stop it? Will other provinces follow? Could violence break out? Or could a new nation rise right in the middle of Canada? We are watching history being written in real time. And the final chapter hasn't been told yet. Because in 2026, everything changes. And no one, not even the Prime Minister, knows what comes next. Could Canada survive without Alberta? Could Alberta survive on its own? The truth is, nobody knows, but the path is being laid. The fuse is lit. And if this referendum passes, it won't just be Alberta that changes. It will be everything. Because once one province leaves, others may follow. We're not just talking about a political crisis. We're talking about the potential collapse of a country. Canada's future is hanging by a thread. Subscribe now to follow the countdown. Because in 2026, history won't just be written, it will be rewritten. And you'll want to be there to see it.